good morning and welcome to Mount Pleasant United Methodist Church and our online worship experience. My name is Steve Guidon. On behalf of all of those that call Mount Pleasant home, we want to welcome you and invite you into our home as we worship together. As we begin today, let me ask you a question. Are you a half full or a half empty kind of a person? I mean, do you see potential where other people see problems? As we gather today, we realize that our lives are surrounded by media, by all kinds of information that is just bombarding us on a daily basis. I brought with me today some spices that I found downstairs. Do you have spices in your home too? But let me ask you, I've got some. I've got some garlic powder. I've got some onion powder. I've got all kinds of black pepper. And I've got scads of salt. But let me ask you a question. What would happen if you take black pepper, right? You just take the cap off. I'm not going to do it, just give you a heads up. But you're just down a whole thing of black pepper. This is all that you consume, is black pepper. That'd be kind of disgusting. Salt in moderation brings out the flavor of food, but right, too much salt can be bad for you. I've got some extra virgin olive oil, not exactly a spice, is it? And I've got some vanilla extract. But if you take only that spice and that's all that you feast on, you're doomed. I mean, your life is going to be a mess. Your body is going to be a wreck. Spices were meant to supplement your life, not consume it, right? We gather for worship today to surround ourselves with the body of Christ, the bread of life. Jesus said, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from God. And so this is our feast. This is our meal today. All the other things that are happening, and they are important, the virus, the economy, political, family, illnesses, all of that are only meant to season your life, not consume it. And so friends, as we gather today, I hope that you've got your Bible ready to feast on what God has prepared for you. And maybe put away some of those other spices of negativity and begin to see the hope that God has in store for you. If this is your first time with us, I hope that you go on our church's website and fill out one of our connection cards. This allows us to get in touch with you and help you on your own spiritual journey. Help you become part of a bigger family that is on the move, that is making a difference. As a church, we've never closed our doors, but we have found alternative ways, creative ways, innovative ways to reach out and to touch people's lives and let them know that God has not given up on us, and so we have not given up on Him. Dear friends, as we gather today, I pray that our time together, the people that come and serve by sharing their songs or their prayers, will touch your life in a powerful, transforming way. This is just the beginning of a lifelong journey that we call discipleship. Friends, I'm glad that you're here. I hope that you feel deep down inside that you were made for more and that together we will find where God is leading us. Friends, let us now begin with our time of worship.
Good morning. I am Debbie Anderson.
And I'm Cheryl Marshall, and we want to welcome you to our online worship this morning. Even though we are not in the same sanctuary, we are still the church. Our mission has not changed and our faith in God has not faded. We are a church not defined by doors and windows, but by our commitment to the Great Commission to make disciples. So to all of our friends in worship with us today, welcome. We're glad you're with us. If you're new at Mount Pleasant, please let us know that you are with us so we can pray for you and include you in Mount Pleasant's community. Let us begin our worship this morning by quieting our minds and centering our hearts on God. Go ahead and take a deep cleansing breath and then join us in our call to worship.
Though we come from different circumstances, families, and locations,
the Lord makes us one in worship.
That we have traveled different paths of struggles and successes, the Lord makes us one
in mission and ministry.
Though each of us have our doubts and fears, as well as joy and faith,
The Lord make us one in praise and prayer.
May the people of God, of the heart and mind, for God is good.
All the time.
God is good. Today, we invite you to join us in our opening prayer. Prayer invites us to set aside our agenda and wants and needs and open our heart to God's presence. It is a moment of personal intimacy, the kind that exists between a loving parent and a frightened child. Do not be afraid. God knows what we need even before we ask, but loves us so much that we have come to ask and seek His will. You will see a list of names of people we have been praying for on the screen. If you have a special prayer concern and would like us to pray for you, please contact us. We would love to pray for you. We will conclude with the Lord's Prayer, which Jesus taught His disciples. It will be posted on the screen for you to follow along. If this is your first time praying, simply bow your head and feel God's presence rest upon you. Let us pray.
In the darkness of night and the brightness of the day, you, O Lord, are present to us, though we do not always see. We are distracted by many storms raging around us, by a disease that defies simple solutions, and by routines that are disrupted and forever changed. Yet in the midst of the storm, you remain unfazed and undeterred. Your power and confidence in our refuge and strength. You have drawn us together this day from a variety of backgrounds, experiences, hopes, and dreams. Be with us as we experience your presence and your healing love. Open our hearts and our spirits to receive strength, encouragement, and peace. Hear our prayer, O God, for those who are in need of your compassion and comfort. We pray that you will be with them and all those that we have lifted to you in our hearts. Come, Holy Spirit, fill us with the fire again, that we might light a way for those still in the darkness. Grant us unity of purpose and makes us a powerful force in the uncertain times. Come, Spirit of the living God, into our worship today. This we pray in Jesus' name, who taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I'll worship Your holy name.
The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes.
good morning, kids. Hey, it is good to see you again. Are you ready for another day of fun and adventure? I know I am. Today's going to be a great day because God has great things in store for all of us. All of those who gather together to thank God for all that we have will celebrate together. Hey, when I was growing up as a kid, they used to have an old saying, you are what you eat. Whatever you put in your body is what you become. If you eat junk food, you feel like junk food. If you eat good, healthy food, you feel strong and healthy and vibrant. And so that happens not only with our body, but with our spirit and our soul as well. You know, there was a time when Jesus was out in a desert and the devil came up to tempt him. And they told Jesus, how about you take care of yourself? You turn these stones into bread. And Jesus said, you know, we don't eat just bread. You know, our true life comes from every word that comes from the mouth of God. So I have bread, but sometimes we don't eat just bread, but we also, every word that comes from the mouth of God. We feast on what God is doing, on the good things, the hopeful things. But you know, sometimes it's so easy for us to just focus on all of the bad stuff, the things that we can't do, the things that we're not allowed to do, some of the rules that your parents have, some of the things that they ask you because they want to grow you into a healthy person. And I was talking to some people about some spices that we have downstairs that we put on all of our food from time to time. I bet you can find these in your home too. And I bet you have a whole lot more than I have here. We have some salt. That salt is always good. But if you have too much salt in your hand and you try and eat it, oh, that's awful stuff. We have a whole bunch of black pepper. Pepper is good. It makes things spicy. It brings out new kinds of flavor. But if this is all that I ate, all the negativity and all of the bad ideas and thoughts, boy, that would not make for a very healthy person. I found some onion powder. I love onions, but too much of this can overwhelm everything else that's going on in our lives. We also have garlic powder. Sometimes I love Italian food with a little bit of garlic or garlic bread, but wow, you put too much of this on and things go crazy really fast. Well, friends, we got to have a balanced diet of prayer, of solitude. We can't just be feasting on what's on television. We have to feast on what God is doing in our world. He's done through the ages and He'll continue to do for us here and now. Well, friends, I hope that you continue to go out and share good news, good, thoughtful prayers for your friends and family. Tell them that you love them. We've got our Tootsie Rolls here. We've got our special glasses. And I pray that together we'll be back together soon where we can begin to celebrate together and share the love that God has for us. Well, friends, I hope that today is a special day and that you celebrate that you're part of a big family that's doing new and great things. Hey, kids, until next time, God bless you.
Our scripture reading for today comes from Romans 12. In the book to the Romans, Paul is writing to the fledgling Roman church from Corinth about what it means to be a different kind of faith community. A community not based on social status, wealth, or privilege, but based on our equal standing as servant before God. Living in the grace of Jesus and the courage of the Holy Spirit, Paul's letter helps us become true disciple in a community of faith. Paul writes, so here's what I want you to do. God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, your going to work, walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you, the best thing for you to do, the best thing that you can do for Him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You will be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what He wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings the best out to you, develops well-formed maturity in you.
I am speaking to you out of the deep gratitude for all God has given me, and especially as I have responsibilities in relationship to you. living then as every one of you does in pure grace. It's important that you not misinterpret yourselves as people who are bringing this goodness to God. No, God brings it all to you. The only accurate way to understand ourselves is by what God is and by what He does for us, not by what we are or what we do for Him.
In this way, we are like the various parts of human body. Each part gets its meaning from the body as a whole, not the other way around. The body we're talking about is Christ's body of chosen people. Each of us finds our meaning and function as a part of His body, but as a chopped off finger or cut off toe, we wouldn't amount to much, would we? So since we find ourselves fashioned into the excellently formed and marvelously functioning parts in Christ's body, let's just go ahead and be what we were made to be without enviously or pridefully comparing ourselves with each other or trying to be something we aren't. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Well, friends, as we gather for worship, we recognize that in the times of difficulty or uncertainty, we refer back to all of those core values that define who we are through the ages. They define the bigger picture that God is telling, so that we don't just look at all of the trees, but we see the forest, the bigger story, the panorama of what God is doing in our own lives. We do that by sharing together the historic affirmation of our faith, the Apostles' Creed. As we share the creed, let us not just say it, but let us think about it and believe it, and let it become our own creed for who we are and who we can become. Dear friends, I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, His only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate. He was crucified, dead, and buried. And on the third day, He rose from the dead. He ascended into heaven and sitteth at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From thence He shall come to judge the quick and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and the life everlasting. Amen. Dear friends, as we gather, one of the great opportunities that we have in worship is to remember all of the blessings that we have. The friends, the family, the faith that unites us together, so that we become people that see the glass as half full, because the best is yet to come. We know that God is doing a wonderful new thing in our world and in our lives, and we get to be a part of it. Let us now continue to celebrate all that God is doing by the giving of our gifts, our tithes, and our offerings.
Grand earth has quaked before, moved by the sound of His voice, and the seas that are shaken and stirred can be calmed and broken from my regard. Through it all, my eyes are on you. And through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you. It is well with me. And far be it from me to not believe, even when my eyes can't see. And this mountain that's in front of me will be thrown into the midst of the sea. Through it all, my eyes are on you. And through it all, it is well. And through it all, Through it all, my eyes are on you. It is well, it is well. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. The waves and wind still know His name. And it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul, and it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul. Through it all, my eyes are on you. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you. It is well with me.
Friends, we thank God for every good gift that comes from above. Let us pray for these blessings that we have received, these gifts, and for our church. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, may your Spirit rest upon us and upon these gifts that have been given, that your word and your light may be proclaimed in our community and in our own lives. Father, help us to be bearers of that light. Help us to be witnesses to the truth, and help us to be dispensers of hope in a very dark and weary world. Father, we thank you that we are able to participate with you and the Holy Spirit in the transformation of the world. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Soon all those around can
Have you ever heard anybody ever say, life is a journey? What does that even mean, to say life is a journey? It has a beginning and it has an end. Ralph Waldo Emerson once wrote, "It's about the journey, not the destination." I beg to differ. I've never met Emerson, doubt that I ever will, primarily because he's dead. But my point is that sometimes it is about the destination, isn't it? If life is a journey that's going nowhere, then it's just a wandering. It's a meandering. It's just a chaotic movement going nowhere in particular. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no tomorrow, there's no future, there's no past. It's all meaningless. And so when we think about life as a destination, it tells us that life has something that we're heading towards, something that we're moving towards, something that we're focused on, something that life ought to be really all about. The question of whether we're moving forward in it or backward. And so the challenge that we always ask as part of Christians is, are we moving forward? Are we moving towards the kingdom of God, or are we moving away from it? In the first century, there was a Galilean rabbi that came out of a small town called Nazareth. And he changed the world by telling us that life has a purpose, that life is fundamentally about returning to who God is and with God for those that are willing to go. He shared with us how we have all kind of lost our way. And so some of his fundamental teachings were about three fundamental things. First of all, he told us that every person is a soul. Every person has a life, a purpose. We are all spiritual beings. He also reminded us that we are all homeward bound. All of our activities, everything that we see, everything that we do, is guided by this desire within us to return to that place of origin. We were created by God, for God, to live with God. Okay, so we're spiritual beings created by God. We have a spiritual home with God, but we have lost our way. We're horribly confused about who we are and about where we're going. It's about what's going on in our lives that are drawing us to that place. Or sometimes we even get distracted. We take detours. We make choices that we shouldn't take. And so sometimes we need to find a way to get back on track. How do we, as human beings, if you believe that you were created by God, for God, that you have a place in the kingdom, how do you get there? Who are you following? Are you going where you really want to go? Okay? And so sometimes life really does have a destination. It's not just about all of the random activities that are going on in your life, but about where you're heading, the path that you're on. Okay, so what that all means is that we created this discipleship program that we're kind of beginning. We've started the last couple of weeks, called the Summit. It's a desire to help you find the deeper things of the kingdom, finding your way. It's about discipleship. And discipleship is essentially learning to follow Jesus as our shepherd, as our good shepherd, as he guides us to the path that we're supposed to be on. By following Jesus, we try and imitate Jesus. We are intentional learners trying to imitate who Jesus is. And by doing so, allowing ourselves to find the place that we call home, the place that we were made for, the place of our deepest longings, the place where our soul finally finds rest. So what is the problem? Well, the problem with the Summit is that sometimes we get so distracted with this life, we think that this is all that there is, that we give all of ourselves to it. Our individualism overwhelms our desire to follow Jesus wherever he is. And so sometimes we often miss out on the exponential part of life, the abundant life that Jesus offered to us, because we become so satisfied with the superficial, and then we ignore the supernatural. So we're on this journey. We're trying to find out where we are and where we are called to be. So we started this journey by understanding that sometimes we're all in the wilderness experience. We find ourselves in a time of chaos, a time of upheaval, a time of clarifying who we really are, because we can no longer just go through the routines. And sometimes it's important to break up those routines, to find out what's really going on the inside. The stress, the anxiety of change. But in that moment of change, we're birthing something new. Jesus said as he was talking to his disciples, he said, a woman giving birth has pain, for her time has come, and so it is with you. Your time has come. But he said, I will see you again, and no one will be able to take away that joy. Just as a woman who is giving birth to a child forgets about the pain because her child has been born into the world, you will forget about all of this chaos for the new things that are about to be birthed. This is the wilderness that we find ourselves in. Don Miller once said, once you know what it takes to live a better story, you don't have a choice. Not living a better story would be like deciding to die. We don't want to have any of that. We believe that God has better things in store for us. So I hope that you're here this morning to roll up your sleeves, to make some decisions, some choices in your life, because believe it or not, to do nothing is in itself a choice, a decision not to follow Jesus. In John chapter 1, verse 4, Jesus said, or John the writer said, in him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. So that's why we're starting today. We want to give you a pathway. You see, sometimes in church life, we want to say, hey, you ought to be doing better. But we never really define what that means. And I want to give you a pathway so that you can make some progress. You can feel like you know the direction that you're on. You know where you're going, and you know who's leading you. We started with the wilderness, the decisions that happen in the wilderness about who you are and the life that you live. You take an honest look at your life, at where you are, the beginning and the end. Everything else has been stripped away, and we said, what does it mean now for us to be the church? What does it mean for you where you are watching this? What does it mean to be in worship, to yield your life to God, no matter where you are, whether you're at home in front of the TV in your living room, or whether you're here in one of the pews on a Sunday morning? What does it mean now for you? That's the wilderness experience. Now, from the wilderness experience, we talked about the first stage of people, of different kinds of people that we go through, different stages. And the first one is one that I called Trader Joe. Trader Joe is all about chasing carrots. Do you know what that's like? Right? Just chasing the next big thing, always chasing the next promotion, the next new toy, the next experience, always wanting something a little bit more, something always drawing you. And whenever you get there, they move the target. So you're constantly on the hamster wheel, always pursuing a constant moving target, never feeling satisfied, never feeling good enough, never feeling at rest or at peace with who you are, the soul that is within you. These are people that are constantly looking for what is coming next. Now, I have to be honest with you, I think most of the people that truly fall into this category are probably not paying attention this morning. Maybe they're trying to catch up on a few more emails, or maybe they're just like you. Maybe while this sermon is going on, you've decided, I want to catch up on a little bit more housework, right? There's a little bit more that I could be doing. It's so hard for me to find rest because I'm so excited and so nervous. There's so much nervous energy. There's so much to do. My schedule is full. So much pressing on me. You're drawing ever onward on this treadmill. And I find that with people that really truly fall into this category are really dominated by three fundamental functions. They're driven by the past. There's usually some emptiness in their past that they're trying to make up for. Maybe it's something in their family. Maybe they've always been expected to be overachievers, and they just have to live up to somebody else's expectations. Maybe they're frazzled in the present. There's so much nervous energy, they cannot control the present. And so there's that sense of anxiety. They're just frazzled. They can't really settle down. Even to sit down for 5 minutes for a time of prayer or Bible reading or to work on their soul would seem like useless time, wasted time. To deal with their own soul, their own health, just doesn't make sense because it doesn't make money and it doesn't get them new toys to play with. And finally, they're anxious about the future because the future is something they can't control. Do you know anybody that falls into that category? Where busyness is artificial significance, faith is in their money or new technology, the promise of what comes next, and relationships are often identified by their competitive value. Oftentimes, people that fall on that treadmill are burnout, worn out, and exhausted. We're in a society that has more toys than ever before, more information than we know what to do with, and yet more people are exhausted watching Facebook and trying to figure out who has more likes than the other person. Somebody once said that if you live for the approval of others, you will die from their rejection. And that kind of goes hand in hand with something that we said last Sunday. If you let success go to your head, failure will go to your heart. It will take up residence. You'll be so fearful of not measuring up. If success is defined by your title, by what you have in your closets or up in the attic stored away, then you will die by not having enough. You will never be good enough. Now, you might think, for example, that this is just something that I've made up, but I've seen this over and over again in the scriptures. In Matthew chapter 13, Jesus writes, "In them is fulfilled the prophecy." He's talking about all the people that are distracted, all of those people that are the traders, the movers and the shakers. He said, you will be ever hearing but never understanding. You will be ever seeing but never perceiving. For this people's hearts has become callous. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, turn, and I would heal them. Do you know anybody like that has intentionally closed themselves off? I've got other things to deal with, right? Spirituality is antiquated. It's so passé. It is so old school. They've closed their hearts so that even now in a moment of chaos when people are trying to make sense of their lives, they no longer are able to hear. It isn't that Jesus has rejected them. They have rejected themselves. They have cut themselves off from the future that God has in store for them. So what do we need to do to kind of get through to these people? There is a solution, by the way. You can get through, but it often requires a life-altering, world-collapsing crisis. There usually has to have something that happens in their life that will break through. Do you know people that have had something that so radically changed their lives that God has broken through? Maybe it's a death in their family, the loss of a job, the loss of a marriage, something that they had counted on that was going to be their bedrock, their firm foundation is now gone. We live now in a time where a lot of things are changing. Sometimes it's changing so much that people can barely figure out whether there's an earthquake of seismic proportions that is happening in our world, and what do we do now? But our foundation has always been on Christ, hasn't it? Do you think he's surprised by all of this? Do you think he's up in heaven nervously asking the Father what's coming next? Jesus has a plan. Jesus is asleep in the boat. He's not afraid and he's not worried, and neither are we. We just have to be faithful. We just have to understand that we were made for a time such as this. And now, more than ever, Mount Pleasant will stand up and it will shine brightly on this hill for all those that are living in darkness. We are not giving up and we are not giving in, and we will certainly never give over this place to darkness. We believe that a crisis is coming and has come and will change people's lives. What I'm asking you to do is to reach out to somebody, to share your light by texting them on the phone and saying, hey, join us for worship. Join us for Bible study that's online. Join us and let your light shine. Now, I don't think that kind of call is going to resonate very well with Trader Joe. Trader Joe is way too busy for stuff like that, too embarrassed to think about the impact that something like that would have on his friends and neighbors. He's more interested in how he is perceived out into the world to do something so bold. Are you? Are you willing to go the distance? Well, today we're taking our next step. Today we're taking the next step up to the mountain, and this is what we're calling the tourist trap, or simply the tourist. These are people that live in the shadow of the mountain. And where this came from is a couple of years ago, we had an opportunity, Lynette and I and the family, and we took everybody out to Vail, Colorado, just to visit my aunt, and we went out for a day to visit Vail. And I'll never forget this. Vail is in the shadow of the mountain. It's obviously at the bottom of the mountain, and you can look up and you can see the mountains in the distance. You can only see them, but in Vail, they have all of these trendy shops, very expensive shops. And I remember in particular, the kids were kind of small at the time. And we went into a shop, and there was all kind of things. It was a glass shop, which is something you always want to do with small children, take them into a glass shop. And there was a vase there up on a pedestal, which is a great place for a vase. And the vase had a price tag of $40,000. $40,000. Let that sink in. A vase. Now, it was pretty. I don't want it. But for $40,000, you get your kids out of there in a big hurry. I'm just telling you that this is the kind of place that Vail is. It's out of our element, or out of my element, maybe not out of yours, where people at the higher end are looking for specialty gifts, expensive specialty gifts. And so what people do that are tourists, they come and they look at the mountains and they enjoy the ambiance, they enjoy the scenery, but they're really kind of there for the shopping, right? They're there to look into the shadows. They're kind of into the shops, I mean. They're there to see and to be seen. They go to the greatest hot spots, right? They go to the trendy spots. They go to Vail. Vail is a very trendy place for the ultra-rich. And they want to go and they want to see and they want to be seen. Now, they are in the shadow of the mountain, so they can see the mountain, but they never really go into it. That would require too much work. And so I've found that oftentimes there are people that are tourists in our midst. There are church shoppers. And if you don't mind, I'd like to show you a short video that will help you understand a little bit about what church shoppers are.
Nick and Molly just moved to the city and can't agree on what they want. They are young and energetic and looking for a new church home. We'll take some personality tests, tour the sites, ask some questions, and based on taste, experience, and location, we'll find them the perfect congregation. I'm Corey Clark, and welcome to Church Hunters.
We're so excited to find a church. We just started dating.
With the churches we go to now, just not, like, for us, just not really doing it for us, you know?
Right. I go to a satellite campus. I just find it hard to connect emotionally with a video screen. It's just...
Okay, you cried during Cake Boss. So, like, we've been doing a lot of services online, a lot of podcasts. There are a lot of preachers we do like.
really good, but we want serious yet funny.
Yeah, like commanding of the stage yet relatable, you know?
We're more looking for the humor of Andy Stanley with the body of Stephen Furtick.
Hey guys,
What's happening?
I'm Corey.
Good to see you. My name's Nick. This
Hey,
is Molly.
Molly.
Hey guys, welcome to Church Hunters. This is your first church. This is Creekside First Baptist. So while it is traditional, it's still pretty current. Just this year, the pastor started untucking his shirts.
Oh, that's good.
Big deal.
He does dress his age though, so don't worry. He's past the Osteen suit phase, but he hasn't gone full Giglio yet.
Okay, so there's holes in the knees or no?
Well, it's frayed, but no holes.
Phrase? No, okay, got it. Perfect. Okay.
So hey, let me show you around, okay?
All right, let's
Come on.
do it.
I do love this lobby.
It's a great lobby, you know, it's not too big, not too small.
Yeah.
Should be enough room to catch up, chat with your friends.
That's all you need.
But here's a great thing, there's a bunch of side exits, so if you need to leave early and catch the game, you can do that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Honestly, right up front, didn't love the name.
No, First Baptist? Who names a church that anymore?
Not these days. We're looking for like
No.
a Thrive Church, maybe Relevant Church, I don't know, Radiant Church, something.
This is the soundboard they use here. Now remember, it's pretty traditional here. So when Sunday comes around, they turn it way down low.
Got it, yeah.
But the one knock on this church, they still use the childcare numbering system on the screens.
Ooh, for the
Yeah. Or as the moms like to call it, the sanctuary walk of shame.
Yeah. The Sunday morning experience was just a little too traditional
For us, I mean, the pastor's main point, 157 characters. I can't tweet that.
I really think you guys are going to love this place.
I like
We
it.
do. We like
Feels
it.
great.
Yeah.
You know, it's diverse, but it's not like too diverse, you know?
Scripture heavy sermons?
Oh,
or-
yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What about, is it community oriented?
Absolutely.
Great.
Oh, women in ministry?
The parking situation, you guys got to see it. It's super rare nowadays.
it.
Come with me.
There's like a maybe for when my parents
leave it
come
at a
into
maybe,
town
yeah.
for a church for Christmas, Easter type of church.
Like a holiday type
Holidays.
church.
One of the main reasons that I love this church for you guys is that on your personality test, Molly, you scored high in service and hospitality.
Oh, babe.
And there's a great welcome team you could join.
Okay.
And then Nick, you scored really high in need for accountability.
Wow.
And the men's groups here are amazing.
You're just gonna put that out there?
Hey,
just
God
like
knows
that?
your heart, okay? On the next episode of Church Hunters, I think you're really going to love this place. They take relevance to a whole new level. This church identifies as inter-non-denominational. This pastor speaks out of a brand new translation. It's the Tumblr Bible. So did you enjoy that? Did you see anybody that you know in that little video about church shoppers? People that are looking for something that meets my needs. But if you ever think about your role in this, your participation, your expectations, well, that kind of turns them off a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about what are tourists. Tourists, of all that we're going to talk about, tourists are in the most dangerous space because they're close enough to a mountain, to the spiritual life, to feel comfortable, but not close enough to really make a difference. They have a deep sense of what God is doing in their life, but not willing to take the next logical step. I wanted to share a verse with you. It comes from Matthew chapter 15, verse 9, from the Message translation. This is Jesus talking, by the way. He says, frauds. He's calling them frauds. He said, Isaiah's description of you was spot on. These people make a big show of saying the right thing, but their heart isn't in it. They act like they're worshiping me, but they don't mean it. They just use me to cover for teachings to suit their fancy. Does that sound like anybody that you know? Does it sound like something that you've done? See, tourists love to come and they love to gather and they love to hear good music and the preaching and the music was right on. They feel the energy. They want to hear a good, upbeat message. But boy, if you ever start challenging them to discipleship, if you ever start saying, there's a lot more to life than this, they kind of turn a deaf ear. And if you really want to torque them off, start talking about stewardship. Yikes. If you ever want to see people get their dander in an uproar, start talking about money. Tourists go nuts. They give the bare minimum, if at all. They attend the mountain from time to time, on the holidays, on Christmas and Easter, or whenever it suits them, right? They have what I often call spiritual ADD, right? Now, somebody once said, I don't have ADD. It says, I have, oh, look, a squirrel, right? Spiritual ADD is that thing that just takes you in any tangent. Anything that comes across your desk or your life on Saturday will take you away from church, and just like that. Oh, you have something else you have to do? Sure. You have spiritual ADD because you're a tourist. Spirituality is about what it gets for you. You are the consumer. You are the purchaser. You are the consumer of spiritual goods. You go to the most hot spots. These are the church shoppers. Is there something new? Is there a new happening spot? Is there a new church that's thriving? That's where I got to be. They never really think about calling or mission or ministry.
They tend to be nervous people, impatient. What's the new thing? I'm bored with this. Right? I just show up Sunday morning and I go through the motions. They're easily distracted. And above all, they follow the crowds wherever they go. We often know these people as church shoppers, church hoppers. They come in until somebody gets upset, the pastor does something or somebody says to them, because they often tend to be fairly emotionally fragile. Somebody looked at them the wrong way. Somebody took their pew. Somebody took their hymnal. So why do they come to church at all? Well, they come for the feel-good atmosphere, right? They confuse that feel-good with significance, right? I feel good about my life, and it's all about me, so church should make me feel good about me. You know, I had a guy come into my office a couple of years ago, and I was talking about how the church should be in mission and ministry to the community. We have so much to give. And I don't mean just possessions. I mean, we have so much joy and laughter and love. And he said, Pastor Steve, you don't understand us. He said, we're not that kind of people. He said, we want to come in Sunday morning. We want to feel good about ourselves. We want to hear an upbeat message, and we want to go home. He said, we're just not that kind of people. I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. That's what Jesus came to do, to call disciples, to separate light from darkness. You see, tourists come for the show and for the spectacular. They want to see the drama. They want to hear good musicians sing excellent quality. They want a nice, air-conditioned, padded pew. They also want to have relationships that belong to the crowd. Okay? Viktor Frankl was a psychologist during the Second World War, and he was taken into the concentration camps, and he learned a lot about people and the last things that they can give up. And the last thing that you can have, that you have above all things, that is yours and yours alone, and that can never, ever, ever be taken away, ever, is your ability to choose your response. You can stand in Auschwitz, but how you choose is yours and yours alone. And so he finally said, if a person can't find a deep sense of meaning in their life, they will distract themselves with pleasure. Do you know anybody like that? Do you know people that distract themselves with pleasure? Do you know people that are filled up with technology, with what's the next event that we have to go to, the next thing that fills up our life? In Revelations chapter 3, reading from the Message, Jesus is talking to the churches, and he writes the following. He said, he's talking to the Laodicean church, the last church. He said, I know you inside out, and I find little to my liking. You're not hot, and you're not cold. Far better to be either cold or hot. You're stale. You're stagnant. You make me want to puke. You brag, I'm rich and I've got it made. I need nothing from anyone. Oblivious that in fact you're pitiful, blind, beggar, threadbare, and homeless. His condemnation on us is clear. If we're in that tourist, we have one foot in both camps and we're satisfied with neither. So what do we learn from this about tourists? Well, we learn that appearances can be deceiving. Just because you feel comfortable and at ease doesn't mean you're where you need to be. When you look at yourself, how do you evaluate yourself clearly and obviously? Second thing is you need to be aware of what I call practical atheism. Are you an atheist? You may attend church, but boy, you act like it out in public. You neither talk about God, you neither grow in wisdom, you neither serve Him or others. You're living primarily for yourself. And of course, you're following the crowds. Crowds are always or rarely looking ahead. They rarely look to where they're going. They look in the moment and fail to see where they are. Somebody once wrote the following. He said, beware of blindly following the masses, because what you may find is sometimes the end. M is silent. Well, friends, both those that are Trader Joe's, those that are running without thought, without feeling, and those that have a foot in either camp but are not participating in either, really to a large extent, take up most of the people in our world. Both of those categories consume about 80% of our population. There are very few that are willing to go much farther. And of those, Jesus once said, the way to destruction is broad, but the way to life, to abundance, to hope, to new life is narrow, and few will find it. And so I invite you to look ahead. I invite you to consider where you're going, to think about the world that God is offering to you. That's what we call the summit, inviting you to go higher and deeper than you ever imagined possible. But I have to warn you, you can't do it on a Sunday alone. You can't do it part-time. We're inviting you to go all in, to discover more about who God is in your life. Next week, we're going to start a new pathway. We're going to start climbing the mountain, and the wild things that you're about to see are going to change your world. I hope that you'll come back, and I hope that you'll invite somebody else, because we don't want to just be going through the motions. We don't want to be just a hamster on a wheel, and we don't want to be lost and alone, just wandering through, looking at ourselves in the mirror and feeling kind of smug about who we are, when God looks at us and just shakes his head and said, I wish they would wake up and come follow me. Hey friends, until next time, I hope that the love of God the Father blesses you and awakens you to the endless possibilities that are yours in Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen. See you next time.
Call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. keep my eyes above the waves. My soul will rest in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine.
Well, friends, we have come to the end of our time together today. But in a larger sense, this is just the beginning. Everything that you've learned today, I hope that you will go out and you will apply it into the world. That you will share that good news. You will share the hope, the resurrection of Christ. That all that we are facing, all that we will face, will only strengthen us and make us more like Jesus' disciples. Certainly on Jesus' ministry, he was challenged. People were accusing him, and oftentimes it seemed like there was darkness all around, and yet Jesus found a way to persevere, and so will we. Together, we can overcome any mountain. And so as we go back into the world, I pray that the love of God the Father, the grace of God the Son, and the fellowship of God the Holy Spirit will rest upon you and give you peace. Friends, until next time, God bless you.